Hello, my name is Brent Frain. I'm the host for PWD Allies podcast. Today we have the memorial of John Horgan. We're going to be talking about a lot of stuff down memory lane, and I hope that you enjoy today's show as the show starts now. Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Brent Frain. I'm the host for PWD Allies podcast. Today I have Sonia joining me beside me. I have my editor, producer, Neil. He's controlling everything that's going on that you're watching today or you're listening today on the podcast version of today's show. Today, there's going to be a lot to unpack regarding the passing of former Premier John Horgan. He was the Premier of British Columbia from 2017 until 2022. Before 2017, Sonia and I got to know John Horgan back in 2016 when John was in the opposition for the BC NDP. We got to meet John. Sonia, you want to talk about how we got to meet John?
That all started with the BC Liberals at the time, it was Christy Clark, and they decided to stop the $45 a year bus pass for people with disabilities. And that's where it all started from.
Mm-hmm.
We contacted Brent and I, and we were living in Nanaimo at the time. And so we took the bus down to Victoria, as there's no transit. So we had to take the city, or big bus down there. And
the Greyhound was a Greyhound.
It was a Greyhound at the time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we went to stay a night at the hotel there, and John asked us to come down to his office.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, John Horgan invited Sonia and myself to come to the legislature to his office, and he says, "And wouldn't that be so neat to come to my office at the BC legislature and meet the?" He says, "Well, hopefully the next premier of British Columbia." And I said, "Hopefully the next premier." He goes, "Well, I mean that's the game plan. I mean it depends on if people get to know who John Horgan is." And so fast forward. Like from that point is we sat with John Horgan in these funny moments. We sat with John Horgan in his office to have lunch, and we didn't bring a lunch with us because we were gonna just go and grab some a bite to eat. And he says, "Oh no, don't go and eat that junk food." He says Ellie packed me my lunch, and Ellie always makes sure that John gets his veggies and his fruits and he's well taken care of for lunchtime because she didn't want him to eat a bunch of junk food either. And so he says, "Can I share my lunch with you guys?" And he said, "Well, I don't want to take." I think Sonia, what do you say? "I don't want to take your lunch from him." And he goes, "No, I've got lots here." So yeah, we did. We shared lunch and we talked about just different stories of what we've gone through in life. And
he also gave us a pass.
And he gave us a pass, so we got to run amok throughout the legislature.
That's
yeah.
Cool. Before we get too far ahead of ourselves, Brent, I just wanted to make the quick point to everybody watching today that we kind of agreed before the show that I was going to basically turn the whole show over to you because you have way more stories about John than I do. So I was going to turn the whole show over to you, but this isn't clickbait. I do want to say that we are going to be talking about John entirely the whole show, but I did want to share something at the end of the podcast, and I encourage everybody to kind of stay with us to the end of the podcast because I think what I'm going to share is going to shock a lot of people. And I don't say that lightly. I don't say it for clickbait reasons, but there's something that I've kind of kept secret from you for. I mean, you and I have known each other now for almost 3 years, and in order to do a podcast like this, like when you came to me for your podcast idea, like you had to trust me with the show, right? And so it's kind of this implicit trust that we've shared together for 3 years. It's like you trust me with the show, and I take that trust seriously, right? And so I just wanted to, like, we're going to be talking about legacy a lot today of John's legacy, right?
Oh yeah.
And people are going to talk about John's political legacy, but it goes beyond that. And I just wanted to take 5 minutes at the end to talk about how important legacy actually is. And go on a bit of a tangent, but only about for 5 minutes, hopefully. I don't want to go into a whole bunch of detail because, like I said, I do want this whole thing to be about John. But yeah, so with that being said, carry on. Yeah.
Thanks, Neil.
And did you actually want to go to the screen share now and go to the actual photos?
Yeah, in just a few moments, just for our podcast listeners, we're going to be going through photos in just a few moments, and Sonia and myself will be describing each video each photo, not video, photo as we see them, and just to kind of explain where that was and what moment that was in down the time machine. But to summarize the timeline, after we got to meet John Horgan, John actually encouraged me at the time when we were at the legislature meeting with him to run under the executive council in Nanaimo, where Sonia and I were living. And I said, well, I had an opportunity. I mean, what should I do, John? Like, I didn't know how any of this stuff worked, like about political stuff. And he says, well, the only way to know is to find out, is to try. I mean, you just do your level best, Brent. That's what it's all about. You do your level best, and you can't say that you didn't try if you didn't do, right? I said, didn't do. Well, you got to do in order for it to succeed. So we're just joking around about like words. And I said, John, you're playing with words. He goes, words mean a lot of things in life, and you're going to find that out, right? I mean, there's riddles, right? But you have to decipher through these things. So I did. I went and stood for the position, and I was elected twice. I was elected as events chair. I got to choose a co-chair. So I asked Sonia, would you like to be my co-chair? She goes, well, sure, but I had to get approval from the executive council in order to have her on. I couldn't just say, yeah, she's going to be my co-chair. They actually all had to vote and agree to actually have her on. And I found it really helpful for me due to visual reading a lot of material. So because the stuff was so small print, and she was able to kind of work with me on that, and also to help me with events. So grateful to that, Sonia, with that, by the way. And I always cherish those memories. And then I ran for communications. I was elected also. Thanks to John Horgan, who was my mentor, who really encouraged me to actually just go and run. It was not a paid position, unpaid, but the memories I got out of it was very rewarding because I felt accomplishment of what I was able to put back into the community and bring people together and arrange events and communication stuff also. Edie Cartwright, I thank her so much also because she really encouraged me to run for it too. And there were so many of them within the Nanaimo executive that really gave me the backbone part of it to push me forward, saying, prepare me for this stuff. I don't know where future will hold for me going forward when it comes to any of that stuff. Right now, I do podcasts and I enjoy doing what I'm doing. But with that being said, this is all about John Horgan, though. I was talking more about my experience about that, but it really leans back to John Horgan because he was the one that really encouraged me to push forward. We got to spend a lot of time with John, Sonia, at Forward in 2016 there.
Yeah, in Kamloops.
In Kamloops. We got to learn about how the election stuff works on entering data information about how all that works. And I can't divulge how it all works because that was more inside information, but it was quite interesting and surprising at the same time. Like, wow, the amount of data that you can actually access. It was quite interesting of, like people's information, like, stuff like that. So we got to play with that and meet with a lot of the colleagues of there. And I still remember the time, Sonia. Remember that time we got to have our own quiet time, everybody, where we all had to be there in the first thing in the morning as a presentation. Still remember that time where
Yes, I
we
remember.
showed up late. We showed up late, and we walked into the room. John Horgan was on the stage giving a presentation. John was able to read the room. He was able to read the room the moment he picked up on vibes on the feeling of how everyone's emotion was at the time. He spotted us. I mean, there was thousands of people in the room. He spotted us in the back coming in.
Yeah.
I don't know how.
Yeah.
He went and he put his two fingers. So people listening to the podcast, I'll describe. So it's like you're putting those two fingers toward your eyes, and then he's pointing his finger toward the door again. He did that 3 times. And he's like saying, yeah, I see you. I see you. You're tardiness, you're late. And I was like, oh my, look at Sonia. Oh my. And so we sat down, and the mayor, the mayor of Nanaimo, who's now the mayor of Nanaimo.
You were disciplined by John.
And Leonard Krogh, who's the mayor of Nanaimo, he was the MLA for the BC NDP at the time. He was sitting right in the back, and he goes, "You too." He says, "You too. Yeah, I got 2 seats here right for you. You sit right beside me. You're not going nowhere."
Well, you know what? I'm just going to interrupt you a little bit there, Brent, is because that's actually a good segue, because talking about being disciplined by John, he had a couple of names in the legislature. One of them was Hulk Horgan.
Yes.
Hulk Horgan.
Yep.
Right, because he was known to have a very strong temper sometimes, right? And it got out of control. So that was one of the names he was given, and the other name he was given a lot of the time was Premier Dad. Everybody in the legislature knew him as Premier Dad. So he had the Hulk Horgan persona, which was half of him, and then he had this Premier Dad persona. And I think that was one of the really cool things about John, is he wasn't afraid to show both, like the real blustery side of him, like the real aggressive, like loud, had a real anger problem sometimes, and then a really soft teddy bear, father knows best kind of vibe, he had both sides to him, right? And I just wanted to say that I think the last couple of podcasts we've been giving, or at least I've been giving, I should say I have been giving David Eby a lot of grief lately for some of the things that he's done as premier. But I did want to say that I was really impressed with what David Eby said about John on Tuesday when everybody found out that John had passed away. I've included the link to David Eby's video, basically talking about John on the Tuesday. So the link is down in the description, but it's kind of a long video, so I didn't want to play the whole video. But I'll just do a poll quote of one of the things he said during that interview. Eby says, "If you haven't been yelled at by John Horgan, then you hadn't truly worked with him." And then he said, I truly worked with John Horgan. So I just thought that was so enlightening, and so like I said, I've been giving Eby a lot of grief lately, I guess, because I just thought, like, he's like, during the whole election campaign, he's been kind of wooden, and he's been kind of standoffish, and I find him not very, very sincere sometimes, but on that interview that he did, again, it's down in the description, but in that interview he was very genuine, very emotional, very sincere. Like, it was a really nice side to see of David Eby. And so I tip my hat to David Eby, because it was very kind of nice and revealing. Like, he kind of pulled back the veil a little bit. David Eby never does that, and it was just refreshing to see him do that.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned about scolding, because after the convention, we did see John, and John walked up to us, and the first thing was what did he say to us, Sonia? He looked at us and he goes, "Come on, man." his famous line, and I knew we were in trouble. Like he said, yeah, he goes, I saw you guys. I saw you come in. I go, I didn't know you saw it. He goes, come on, man. I mean, seriously. And and that was his tone of his voice of saying, like, yeah, like smarten up. You need to be here on time. And so, yes, like we got scolded. Like we got scolded by him. We learned that to really discipline ourselves. And so, moving forward from that point on, Sonia and I went to different town hall meetings. Every time John would be there, we went to them because, we found them very educational of learning, like learning of just different things like advocacy wise of what's going on. So I want to just now kind of focus on some of the pictures, and then we'll continue on some of the funnier moments too that I'm going to mention too, and Sonia can mention also.
So yeah, the first picture we have up is just the picture that was released by the BC NDP that has it's basically the in memoriam picture that they released. It's got the his birth and death date there.
Okay.
So that's the first picture that I've included there. And then the next picture is his MLA picture, his that is posted on all the MLA publications of him in his tie and shirt and coat and that. And then the next picture is a very popular picture. Again, it's kind of from the BC NDP files. That's the classic kind of button down blue collar look that was John Horgan. I mean, it wasn't an act like everybody says. The blue collar is kind of an act that was put on by politicians, but with John Horgan, it really wasn't an act. He truly was kind of a blue collar politician.
Yeah, John was just a well, he was a happy-go-lucky guy. He's John from Langford.
Yeah, and then this next picture is just a wide shot. Again, it's from BC NDP files, I guess, and it's got kind of everybody on his team, and you can see some of the people in the caucus there. Like you can see Shane Simpson, and there's a few other people in the background.
Yes,
that you can see there.
Oh yes, I remember that was at Forward.
Yeah, Forward.
Yeah, and John just stood right up there.
So I believe that was before he was premier, right? That was in 2016, right?
Yeah,
that was when he was leader, but he wasn't premier yet.
Yeah, he was. That was Forward, our training camp.
Yeah. Okay. And this next few are just tributes from
Kamloops, BC, by the way.
It's just tributes from Twitter. And it's got this first tribute on Twitter is from the BC legislature where they talk about flying the flag at half-mast. And they're going to continue flying it at half-mast until John Horgan's funeral, whenever that's going to be. It's not determined yet, I don't believe.
No, it hasn't been determined yet.
And then the next one is from Richard Zussman. He's a political reporter for the legislature and
local news, Global BC.
He's got it's showing a pair of roses placed under the picture of John Horgan there. And then it's got a note. It says the note reads in part, "Let us remember the laughter, love, and joy John brought into our lives." So that's another tribute from Twitter. Another tribute from Richard Zussman, where they did a tribute at a Canucks game. It was on the big Jumbotron there. It showed his picture. And so Richard Zussman just says a tribute tonight at the Canucks game for former BC Premier John Horgan. So I wanted to show that one. And here's one from Brittany Anderson. Now, Brittany Anderson is an MLA. She took over from John Horgan's riding, right?
Brittany Anderson. No, she took over for MLA Michelle Mungle.
Oh, that's right. Sorry.
Yeah.
Nelson Cruston.
That's right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
we met Brittany. She's a
She's
really
really
nice lady.
and the reason we've included this screenshot is that you can see that John is decked out in his Trekkie outfit. I'm assuming it must have been around maybe Halloween or something. I'm not really sure. But they're both decked out in their their Starfleet uniform for for Star Trek.
I know John and I used to talk about Star Trek all the time.
Yeah, we're gonna
Every
Yeah.
but we'll talk about that episode about that
Yeah.
situation.
And then the next tribute here from Twitter, it's just a statement from the family. Again, it's from Richard Zussman. He's just reposted a statement from the family. It says, from the Horgan family, our hearts are broken to announce the passing of our beloved husband, father, and friend, John Horgan. John passed away peacefully this morning at Royal Jubilee Hospital in Victoria. The well-being of British Columbia and everyone in it was everything to him. He was surrounded by family, friends, and love in his final days. Yeah, and the way it's signed off is "Live long and prosper." That's that's how that ends. And then I just wanted to include as well a picture of John's wife, Ellie. I mean, we can talk that John was a very, very private man. He never, he never gave Ellie the limelight. Like she was always, that was a very private part for him was his relationship with his wife and the life that he led with his wife was very private, right?
Yeah.
And same with his kids. But I just wanted to include that picture.
Mm-hmm.
And then this next picture is when he had the swearing in ceremony in 2017, and you can see that he does the Vulcan. He does the Vulcan sign, right?
Yes.
The live long and prosper. And I thought that was, but that's so John, right? That's
Yeah. Well, yeah.
very much John. So I thought I wanted to include that as well. And here's the picture, and I guess I can zoom in a little bit. Here's a picture, the first day in the legislature, and he's giving a wave to the gallery there. And you were there, I'm assuming, right? You were in the gallery that day?
Yeah.
The first day?
Yeah, we were there
Oh,
on that first day.
Yeah. So
Yeah, there.
that's that picture. And then I also wanted to include a picture of John with Andrew Weaver. He was the leader of the BC Greens, and here they are at a rugby match. And again, like this is working across party lines, and it wasn't an act with John, right? I mean, these two gentlemen actually did get along for quite a time, and they were both big rugby fans, and so they got, I guess, both agreed like, hey, do you want to come and watch a rugby game with me? And they did.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of cool. And we're starting to get to some pictures that are yours, Brent. I just wanted to front load it with
Yeah.
some of the tribute ones. But here again, you can see Michelle Mungle has got the again the Vulcan live long and prosper thing. That's kind of funny. And here we go. So this is the first picture. You said that was the very first meeting when you met John. You sat on the couch in his office with Michelle Mungle. So there, you can talk about that again.
To talk about the background of what that picture is about.
Go ahead.
This one, yes, I love this picture.
Yeah, the couch, the one the coach.
This is the one when he called us in to talk about the bus pass.
The $45 a year bus pass being clawed back, taken
right.
away.
Okay.
Yeah.
You could tell the story about that.
I just did earlier.
Yeah. Well, I mean, of what happened with that, they didn't know.
They had no idea it was happening at the time.
Right.
And then Michelle, she got a phone call, and sure enough, she heard about it. And
we were telling John that that advocating to get, fighting and advocating to get back the bus pass that was in place for persons with disabilities in BC for decades. And it was taken away. And he says, what do you mean? Like, why would they just take it away? I mean, he said that makes no sense. And then Michelle Mungo, at the time, she was the MLA for Nelson Creston at the time. She had got the phone call. We heard her phone ringing, and then she put it on speakerphone. And John says, "Well, put it on speaker so we can all hear." And they're like, "Yeah, I just got word that yes, this is true. This is what's going on. There was a deal breaker that was going on, and take it or leave it." We were like, "What? Like, what's going on?" And all of a sudden, John's like, "You might told Michelle, you might want to just maybe go in the other room, take that." And like it was kind of went down. And John says, "Do you know what this means? Do you know what this means?" Oh, we're like, what? Yeah, they took away a bus pass. Yeah. It's callous. He said it's callous. It's disrespectful.
And I'll keep advocating.
And he says, "I'll keep advocating for every day to get that $45 a year bus pass returned." But he says, but then he goes, "But do you know what this means?" And I said, "John, I'm not sure where you're going with this. This basically," and he goes, "Okay, this basically means that you two are the first ones to disclose this, to bring it forward." And after that, media were buzzing all over us. I was getting phone calls and emails, and I mean, text messages. It was nonstop, and they went, "What's going on?" So we were the first ones to actually to put it out to media, like, "Hey, this is what's going on." And so going forward, John kept advocating the best way he could to try to get that bus pass restored. Yeah.
But sadly, to this day, it's still the same.
Still, yeah. Sadly, to this day, it is still you have a choice of having a bus pass or having the monetary.
Yeah, it got replaced. It got replaced with something that was far less than that one, right?
You know, and then so it's unfortunate that I mean, seniors still have the same bus pass, right?
My mom has.
Sonia's mom has the bus pass. We encouraged her mom to apply for it, and I mean, you don't have to be on income assistance or disability assistance in order to get that seniors bus pass. So you could be on low income and fall under a certain tax bracket in order to get it. I mean, you know, advocating going forward, John. I mean, God rest your soul, John. I will keep advocating forward to get that bus pass restored back to its natural states, that your legacy that you were pushing to get that done. I will keep pushing for you, John, because I know that was one of your pet projects to get that done, to get it back to PWD, and also allow them to keep that $52
and the STS
and the STS, which is the special transportation subsidy, which was in rural areas where people didn't have the transportation. But we talked about that in the podcast before. The reasons why
I got an amount of money per year.
Yeah, it was like $692. Once a year, people would pay for their car insurance. Or now it's like $52. You got to keep giving it out. But
on this next picture, you're holding two signs there.
Yes.
You and Sonia
working for you. And
and I just wanted to put this in context. This was like seven and a half years ago. This was May of 2017. So we're roughly 7.5 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And so this was election night. And he found out he won there, right? That was after he found out that he won.
No, this was a rally in downtown Vancouver.
Oh, it wasn't that night. Oh, okay.
No.
Is it at the Commodore? It was at the Commodore Ballroom.
The Commodore Ballroom, yes.
Oh, okay. I thought this was election night. Okay.
And there was a long.
I think it was the night before the election night.
Yeah, it was like a long lineup. We were all standing there waiting to get in, and I still remember to this day that David Eby walking by. We were all lined up. All these MLAs walking by, and I look and I see David Eby, the skyscraper, walking right by. He goes, "Hello, you two. Hello." And he looks down at us, and I said, "Oh." I said, John's going to be in there. He goes, "Yeah. See, I gotta kind of look down toward him." But yeah, it was interesting that what went down. There were so many people there. The energy in that room. It was.
Here's another picture. Where was this, Ben Brent? Was this the same night? It looks like a conference room again.
Oh, that would be. I'm
Oh,
trying to
that's
think.
Nanaimo.
Oh, that would be in Nanaimo. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was at was that Bevan? I think that was at Bevan.
No comfort,
Because there was a few of them. I'm trying to recall which one that was.
Conference center.
That was at the conference center. Yeah, that was at the the conference center in Nanaimo. Because we did some of them at the Bevan Park there too, but that was at the Coast Bastion.
We were living in Nanaimo at the time.
Yeah, that was a great photo because he says, "Come here, you two. I'm going to get a photo with you." And every time we turned around, John always had time. It doesn't matter who he was talking with. He always had time for people. Like he would stop and start just chatting up a storm.
Yeah.
A lot of his administration, they would like try to steer John the other way. Come on, John, we got to go in because
this one, yeah.
Here's one that I know Sonia really likes.
Yes.
Yeah.
This was election night.
Yes.
This one.
Election night. So this is at a pub afterwards, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember that one. And
I was the very first person that he saw when he walked into the pub. So I was sitting right, we were sitting right at the corner
of
the entranceway, and you could see he was coming and going. I'm like, oh, John's coming.
This story.
Okay. Here we come with the Fry story.
Yeah,
Brent.
that's why I said this story gets even better because
here's the Fry story now.
Where Sonia described it, and the Fry story kind of blends in right with that one. So Sonia was the first person to see John coming in.
Oh, there it is.
And like there was a window right there, so we saw it, and Sonia says, "John's coming," and so we had a plate of fries in front of us, and John had just finished coming from the lieutenant governor's residence to. He gave the press announcement saying, "I've just been welcomed to, to become premier." So he made his way after the press. He said, "Look, I'm hungry. I'm starving. I don't know about you guys, but I'm out of here." And so we are watching it live on TV at the pub. We were watching it, and he said that, and we thought, "Okay, wonder when he's going to be here." He showed up, and just a little while later, we're all waiting. Like, what's taking him so long? He made his way down, and so we had these fries sitting in front of us. So John comes by, and he sees Sonia right away. He gives Sonia a hug, and and then he sees me. He says, "Oh my God!" So he gives Sonia a hug. He shakes my hand. He pats me on the shoulder. He says, "You're a good man. You're a good man." And he says, "Sonia, so good to see you." He says, I love both of you." And those always the words stuck in my mind. He says, "I love both of you. I love all of you." And he said, "Oh," and he goes, "Look," and then he looks down and he sees the fries. He goes, something smells so good." And I said, "Yeah, these are the fries." So I put my hand out and I said, "Here you go, John." I said, "I grab some fries." "Oh, sure, thank you so much." And he grabs like one or two, and I said, "No, I grab more. Grab a whole handful." So he gets a hand and he takes the plate away. And he turns his back talking to some other people. I was like, "My fries." Anyway, and long story short, we got another plate of fries. He needed them more. He was so hungry.
Here's one with you and Horgan, Brent, with a cup of coffee.
Yeah. That was a classic moment. So he says, "Well, let's get a picture of us having a cup of coffee there." And
Kamloops.
Yeah, it was in Kamloops at the University of Kamloops.
And then Sonia has her picture of her cup of coffee too.
He's holding my coffee while I'm taking the picture.
Yeah, he's holding each other's coffee while he's doing it. So it looks like John's having a cup of coffee with me and having a cup of coffee with Sonia. But classic moment.
Okay, and no, I'm not sure when this is, but you're outside. It's a selfie.
Yeah.
The three of you together. I'm not sure what one was taken, but
Kamloops Conference Center.
The Kamloops Conference Center, at the university there. Yeah, it's a huge place.
And that's the day we saw some of the BC Lions too.
Yeah.
And then here's one with Sheila Malcolmson. She's in the picture there, Sheila Malcolmson. So that was a by-election, was it?
Yes, that was at the by-election.
This is at the legislature.
There's a little delay on that.
This one.
Yeah, that was at the by-election that Sheila Malcolmson won in Nanaimo, BC.
Mhm.
And that was a real close race because if she had not won that by-election, things would have changed dramatically for the BC NDP at that time.
Mhm.
So it was very crucial that that Sheila needed to win that by-election. The reason why the little story behind that is Leonard Krogh was the MLA at the time. Leonard had stepped down to spend more time with his family and his community, and he basically ran for mayor, but he couldn't be MLA and mayor at the same time. So Sheila ran. She got elected. We helped her. Sonia and I helped Sheila a lot in her campaign to get her elected in the national. And of course, under the executive, that's how I got to know a lot more.
Yeah. And I think this is the last picture of you and Sonia with John, and that's you're all in the masks. I think this is in Langley, right?
Yeah, that was in Langley in 2020.
Yeah. So that was your last that's the last time you met with John?
It was in May of 2020.
That was before that was when he gave a SkyTrain
election.
Yeah, so that was
it was spring. I wasn't. It's in the spring.
Yeah, that was when he was given a SkyTrain announcement about SkyTrain coming to Langley.
Okay.
And that's at Douglas Park and
yeah, and Andrew Mercier was actually going to be running. He was preparing for election time, before election.
This is where I take over the podcast, Brent, because I included two of my own screen grabs.
Okay.
This first screen grab, you can see it's got me and John Horgan's in front of me, and my son. This was 7.5 years ago. This was actually so it was March of 2017. It was end of March. It was 3 days before my birthday, actually, my 49th birthday. 3 days before my 49th birthday, the BC NDP invited me and Jake and a friend of mine down to attend basically a media event where the BC NDP were going to basically record or tape a bunch of ads for the political campaign for the lead up to the election, right? So again, this was like roughly 2 months before the election. So they were kind of preparing all of their media tools. And so they invited me and a whole bunch of other people to come to a school. It was from 9 a.m. in the morning to about 4 p.m. So it was like 7 hours roughly. So it was my only time that I ever met John. So again, this was before he was premier.
Yeah.
So I my only time meeting him, but I got to spend a whole 7 hours with him, and it was cool because, like I knew for a fact, and there was no doubt in my mind. There was no doubt in my mind that I saw John and going, I'm looking at the next premier, and I knew for a fact that he was going to be the next premier. And what's funny is that I don't think John Horgan himself believed it. Like you could see that he was kind of rough around the edges, and like for example, when he was taping a commercial with an older woman, and they had to do, I think, I don't know, it was like 7 or 8 takes because John kept flubbing his lines. Like he was kind of nervous, and he was kind of wet behind the ears at that time, right? I mean, we all know him as a very polished, very good speaker. That he spoke from the heart. But when I met him, you could tell that he was very wet behind the ears still, right? Like you were saying, nobody knew him at the time. So it was funny. Like they kept stopping him and say, kind of, do it again, John, do it again, John. And he
Yeah.
and I remember him turning to me and laughing, and he says, "This is hard, isn't it? This is really hard." And then they broke for lunch. Then we all broke for lunch. They had sandwiches and stuff. And he's like, "Oh, good." He says, "I'm getting tired of all this stuff." He's like, I'm fumbling over my lines." He says, "I just want to have a break," that kind of thing, right? So
Yeah.
just really funny. But anyway, this screen grab is from an ad that they used, but I am literally in the ad for only half a second. So that one grab that you see of me and Jake,
Yeah.
that is half a second worth of video footage.
Oh,
So
wow.
so they called me to spend 7 hours with John so I could be in an ad campaign for a 1/2 second.
Oh my.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So, and this last photo is a classic selfie. John just grabbed my phone. He says, "Hey, Neil, I'll take a picture with you and your son." And he did. He just took my phone. He's the one
Yeah.
that snapped.
He does,
Does that
yes.
a lot.
He's the one that snapped it. He says, "Don't worry, Neil." He says, "I'm good at this." And
Yeah.
he just
Yeah.
grabbed my phone and he snapped it, and so that's really cool. That's the only photo that I have of John and me and Jake together is that.
Oh,
But it was
That's
really cool. Yeah,
it's really, really
That's so
classic.
John.
That is so John.
yeah.
John
But
did that so many times,
Took
Neil.
my phone so many times, like,
Yeah, me too. I'm like, John, I
yeah.
can't get a picture of all of us. He says, I got long arms. He says, yeah, he goes,
and to this day, I still have that same phone.
yep.
Anyway, we're back to full screen again. That's the end of the pictures. But yeah,
Yeah.
like I said, like I didn't know John nearly as well as you did, but there's probably not very many people that could say that they got to spend 7 hours with him, and I did, and it was really cool.
The great memories of what those moments of time are like, and the mind can focus right on that moment of time, and that's what I always cherish, all the great times with John. And I mean, just going through different town hall meetings, all the funny moments. Like John would like literally put us on the spot. There was a couple, and I'm gonna mention these, and Sonia will just laugh about it. There was a town hall meeting, Sonia, that we went to, and John was at before. Yeah, there was one in Victoria. There was one in Victoria that we went to, far from the BC legislature, at the hotel. That John was actually at, and so we got to ask questions. It was about rent. It was about rent. And he saw us in the audience, and he knew that we were there, and he says, about housing, how much about the shelter?
I don't remember.
About the 375, and how much? He goes, and right off the bat, and I didn't know where he was going with it. He goes, and how much is the shelter, Brent? He put me on the spot.
Yeah.
Right there. Like, 375 is what they give. Unacceptable, he says.
Yeah.
And so he says, because you can't rent anywhere for 375. And I remember these lines. There was one in Nanaimo that really stands out, a moment in the convention center. Now, they had a lot of union organizations that were going on. They had different speeches that were going on in the room. And now, because I wasn't part of the union, I couldn't actually go in to sit in there into their meetings, but they had their doors open. And John was up on the stage. He's there, and he's like, God, waving his hand, like, come on in. And I said, like, there was a couple other people like, yeah, you can't actually go in there. Like, I mean, technically one of those technicality things. So I stood at the door. Sonia was like, well, yeah, I'm going to go and use the washroom, the ladies' washroom. And I said, okay, I'll meet you right back here. And they had water out there, coffee, tea, juice, and little snacks out there for the public. I mean, like, when I say public, I mean the public that were part of the union, and just some of the delegates and stuff that were around too. So I said, okay. So John was there, and then he spotted us, and then he's like, kind of with the two fingers and the finger pointing, that like, yeah, I see you. And I'm thinking, oh geez, like, And next thing you know, there was a lady that was sitting there. Her name is Sue, Sue Strode. And we know Sue really well. And so she says, Brent, come here. I can't. John said, no. She says, stop it. So I came over, and so she's sitting at the table right near the door. And I said, yeah, it's quite a presentation. And John thinks really highly of you guys. And I said, yeah, I know. I said, hey, he's on the stage. He's pointing his acknowledging that we were there.
Yeah.
So, anyway, long story short, just not gonna bore people with the conversation on that is, I had gone in, so Sonia had gone into the ladies' room. I had gone into the men's room. Anyway, so I'm at the sink washing my hands, and I'm thinking, oh, there's this kind of weird kind of soap that was coming out. It was kind of that foamy soap, but it had a nice, good scent to it, some of it. So I'm washing my hands, and then I hear this behind me in the big giant, all these mirrors, and I see the door open, and all of a sudden, what the? And at the same time I went, what the? Like we both almost echoed at the same time. Because we're like, I look in the mirror like, oh my, and he goes, oh my, what the?
Yeah.
And he says, so John and I got talking. I says, wow, what a place to bump into you in the washroom. Yeah. So yeah, we were talking and just gabbing up a storm. And John says, I as much as I enjoy chit-chatting with you, maybe we can take a step into the hallway and talk, because otherwise my security are going to think that you're holding me hostage or captive. Yeah. And I went, or he said, you hijacked me, man. He said, come on, man. And his famous line. And I said, oh, geez, yeah, I never thought about that, John. He goes, yeah, they're going to wonder what the heck's going on. So we came out, everything. I went, and I pulled a John. I said, everything's fine here, everyone. Everything's fine. Yeah. His security started laughing. They're like, John, everything going good? He goes, oh, yeah. He said, we're just talking bathroom talk. That's what he said, bathroom talk. Oh, okay. Another funny moment. So it was at the Sheila Malcolmson by-election. We were at the convention center, and Sheila Malcolmson had some of the staffers. They were getting her ready for her speech so she can go up on stage. And they had all the media there, all the cameras. We were all lined up there. CTV News, CBC, Czech News, Global BC, you name it. They're all lined up. Some of the camera people actually knew who Sonia and I are. And we recognized the one, Sky Ryan. Yeah. And from Czech News. And she says, hey, she was right away. She spotted Sonia before me. She goes, well, what'd she say to you? Something about, wow.
Look who's here.
Look who's here, yeah. And it's just, oh, hey, Brett. She says, how's it going? So we were chatting with them. It was John had gone into the other room because they were Sheila's staff were trying to get John's attention. So John and I were, and Sonia, we were all talking. And John turned around, he goes, Brett, can you hold this for me? What? He had a glass of beer. I was standing here with a glass of beer. And so he hands me his beer, and I'm like, what? He says, hold my beer. He goes, hold my beer. And I'm like, it was like one of those pun things, jokes. Hold my beer. I'm like, what? So I'm holding you with two bottles, not bottles, but glasses of beer. Yeah. And meanwhile, Sonia says, I think she had to go somewhere. Yeah, you had to go toward, I'm not sure, somewhere in there anyway. So she had a glass of wine. I'm thinking, okay, well, what am I going to do here? I got two glasses of beer, trying to hold this glass of wine. So anyway, when the cameraman said, here, I'll take the glass of wine, I'll put it on the table. Mm-hmm. And I think it was Liza Yazda. She was over there. She says, Brent, I'll take care of the wine. Not to worry. I go, no, you're drinking. That's Sonia. She goes, oh, no, don't worry. I'm not going to touch that wine. So I'm standing here holding these. Richard's husband comes by and he goes, that a boy? He said, look at that. I go, no, they're not mine. He goes, yeah, that's what they all say. That's not
double fisting it.
Yeah. So we were all just joking around, and John comes back and he says, oh, thanks for holding my beer. And he goes, yeah. I was like, so anyway, long story short, Sonia, now here's this is where Sonia's going to take over the conversation.
Oh, I don't know if I can remember that.
So this is where Sonia's going to take over, so John had other staffers, other people who want to talk to him, because once John starts talking, That's it. Yeah, and the staffers tried to have to pull him away. So basically, John had stepped away to talk to some of the people. So we were all talking. Sonia goes, I want to talk to John about something. Okay. So John sees Sonia right away before Sonia saw him. And, oh, there's Sonia again. I want to talk to her. And I said, yeah, I think Sonia wants to talk to you. Yeah. Those two got talking for, oh my gosh, I think it was like 25 minutes, half hour. Like,
Wow.
yeah. And so I got talking with other people around there. They were talking. You go ahead. You
It
tell
was
the
just all
story.
Star Trek talk. That's all it was. Nothing else.
It was
Yeah.
all
Star
about Star
Trek
Trek.
talk.
Star Trek,
That's
yes.
funny.
Because
Yeah.
John, as we all know, John was a huge Trekkie, a huge Trekkie fan.
Yeah.
So, and so is Sonia. So Sonia and John, they just got talking about Star Trek, everything Star Trek. And John comes back and he says, I want to return a favor to you for holding my beer. What? I got something, and he says, Sonia, put your hand out. And so he had his kind of fist like this, and he had kind of his hands gripped into like almost like a fist, two fists. I go, whoa, hang on there, bud. His fists are up, and he goes, no. So Sonia, open your hand. He has his fist closed, and she goes, why? What's up? No, just do it, please. Just follow me. Okay. So she did, and he puts a little ticket into her hand. A ticket for what's this? Well, he says, for another glass of wine. And he says, he had his fist for me. Brent, open your hand. She gave me a ticket. So he has a complimentary ticket to go get another drink because he wanted to return a favor. And he says, I don't want you to have to go and buy one. I said, because we told him about where we were renting. I mean, rent at the time was cheaper than what the renters are now.
Yeah, but it still was expensive.
But still, it was expensive, right? So he said he just wanted to return a favor of saying thank you. And those are kind of the moments I want to mention about John, of his mentorship, what he meant. He meant so much to me. Brought a lot of joy into my life on a personal level. But he taught me a lot about politics. I knew a little bit, but he taught me a lot more about as time goes on, not to stop doing what I believe in doing. And don't never doubt myself. Always stand up for what I believe in. Don't stop advocating, because advocating, it doesn't matter what topic it is. He says, is advocating means to make change for the better, and to improve people's lives. And I mean, sometimes people are successful in getting things advocated for change, but you network with people and you grow strength. He says, and that's how you do it. You grow strength and you learn from others, he said. I go, and that was the key word. You'll learn from others, Brent. You learn from others. And as a teacher, he says, I try to teach people the best way I can. And one part that always stood out, that John said to Sonia and myself, was right at the very beginning. And he repeated this many times to me. I will never be able to make everybody happy, Brent. I'm not going to try. I'm not going to promise I can make everybody happy. And I said, well, what do you? And I remember talking to John. John, God rest your soul. I remember the one line that you said to me was, if I make a promise, I need to follow through 100% on that. Not a half-assed. He says, not a half-assed measure. If I promise something to you, if I promise something to you, I'm going to commit 100% to that promise.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, well, what do you like? And I didn't really fully understand. Like, what do you mean? He goes, so if I'm going to promise that I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. Yeah, I'm going to follow through. But if I know I can't make that promise 100%, I'm going to try, and I would try my best. But if I know that I can't follow through with it. So basically what John's message is to people is that, and that's why people love John so much, is that he said he would do his level best. And they wouldn't make everybody happy. He would do his best.
That was a very you could almost say tired phrase that he would say, but at the same time, you believed it though, even though he kept saying it.
Yeah,
it was a believable thing. He would always say it, and you actually believed it.
Well, because like when he said, like, don't ever stop advocating for things that you need to stand up for. He said, if it's, And he said to me, he goes, if it's the 375 guy, that's what he said to me. If it's the 375 guy, and I go, what? He goes, I've seen your tweets. I've seen your tweets, Brent. The 375 guy. And that's what we always said. And he goes, it's unacceptable. Like, you can't rent anywhere for 375. You can't rent anywhere for $400 or whatever he said the case is. And he says our government needs to do more. And that was when he was in government. Like, he says, we recognize our government needs to do more, and we need to do more. And he says, and it's people like you both, you and Sonia, and many other advocates. You tell us what needs to be done, and we need to make change. And that's why we don't stop advocating. And I always remember just the little phrases, like little, I almost call them like little crickets. You know what I mean? Like, there's like little words that mean a lot, and you put them all together as a puzzle.
Yeah.
And it means a lot. He's taught me to be a better person. He's taught me to be just to believe in myself, of the strengths that the attributes that I have. I don't know how he was able to pull all that out and put it forward. And he says, just stand up for everything. That he said, sometimes you take falls. Right?
Yeah.
You pick yourself up. And he said to me, you pick yourself up, you give yourself a kick in the ass, he said, and you go forward. That's what he's like, John.
Yeah.
He goes, well, it's true. He said,
you know what, Brent, we've already been on the podcast for an hour, and we said we'd only be half an hour, but I mean, it's been a good show.
It's been a fast show.
Having said that, it's been a great show, but I wanted to finish off the show.
Yeah.
I said that I was going to reveal something kind of shocking, but I hope people stay with us till the end, because I hope it's worth it.
Before you go with that one, I just want to say one quick thing is, John's favorite line, Sonia, what is it?
Live long and prosper. I'm not good at doing the.
I am. John taught me this, everyone. John taught me this, and it was hard.
I can't do it. There's no way. I can't. I just do it like this.
He taught me. There we are.
I can't.
There.
I can't do it.
There. Live long and prosper.
Yeah. I'm not good at doing that at all.
Yeah. He got my fingers, I guess. He goes, no, like this. I'm like, hang on, because I'm not gonna hurt you. Like, and he goes, yeah. So yeah, there we are. Live long and prosper.
There you go.
Rest in peace, John.
Rest in peace, John.
Yeah, and I guess the way I wanted to finish off the show, and again, I'm not trying to hijack the show, because we wanted the whole show to be about John, but I wanted to end off the show talking about, when we talk about death, I mean, whenever you go to a funeral, like, of course, everybody knows that my first wife passed away, right? It's been 11 and a half years for me. And, whenever you go to any funeral, you're always, whenever you go to any funeral, it's always, you're always confronting your own mortality in a way, right? Because you're there to witness somebody else's passing, but when you do that, you kind of you're confronted with your own mortality. It's like, and a lot of people are going to be talking in the next few days and next few weeks about John Horgan's legacy. Like, legacy is a big thing, right? So John Horgan's legacy as a politician, and that's important, right? But he also was a family man. He was a husband. He was a father. All of those are really important legacies too. And and again, this whole show is going to be about John, but I just wanted to steal it a little bit and say, when my wife passed away, like, again, like, I was confronted with my own mortality, in a sense that, like, why is my wife gone and I'm still here? And this idea that my wife's legacy, my first wife's legacy, that was important to me, so important. And you start thinking about stuff like that, right? And the whole thing about the clawback of I realized that pension of hers, that was part of her legacy, right? And the fact that the provinces still disrespect disrespect pensions with protected pensions with a clawback, that's disrespecting somebody's legacy.
Mm,
And again, I don't want to get political,
yeah.
but I mean, again, people are going to be talking about John Horgan's legacy, and it's like, other people's legacies matter too. Like my wife wasn't a politician, but she had her legacy, right? Everybody that dies has their legacy. They leave a mark,
Hmm.
and my wife sure did, right?
Yeah.
And and that loss that you feel for somebody, like if you lose a spouse, um, you know, I was amazed how quickly people seem to move on, and it's like, well, now we can forget about that and move on. And I can tell you that even 11 and a half years later, there's still a piece of me that doesn't move on from it because I don't forget.
Well, yeah.
And
Yeah.
and again, my first wife's legacy is so important. And like I think about her, like I think about, if she was in front of me right now and she'd be saying, have you really tried your level best to steal from Horgan? Have you really tried your level best? But this would be my wife speaking to me. Um, to really solve the pension clawback. And of course, like I feel useless. Like it's been 11 and a half years for me, and
Mm,
I don't feel like I've accomplished anything, right? And again, I'm just being honest.
yeah.
That is something that really bothers me, even 11 and a half years later, that my wife's legacy is important. And I feel
Yeah.
that the province, that the government is still disrespecting it so much. And I feel like a jerk. I feel like an idiot that I wasn't able to hold up my end of the bargain to my wife's legacy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's
Upset.
anyways. So that's one of the political. That's probably the only political thing that I'll say.
Hmm.
But the other thing that I wanted to say, this is when it starts to get maybe a little bit shocking,
Yeah.
um, is you know, again, when my wife passed away, I remember when I got a call from the hospital. It was St. Paul's. It was early in the morning, and a nurse calls me and she says, "Your wife's gonna die today." Like just matter of fact, she says, "Your wife's definitely gonna die today. We're going to try to keep her on life support and give you enough time to get down here." And of course, I'm in Surrey. I had to get
Like,
all the way. I had to get all the way down to St. Paul's, which is like, in the
yeah.
heart of Vancouver.
Well, yeah. It's not
It's
hop,
a,
skip, and a jump.
I know it's a long way out there, right? But she said, "We'll try to keep her alive. You just try to get down here as fast as you can." And but the next thing she said to me was, um, "Are you going to be okay?" And I said, "Yes." And but then she said, uh, "Are you having suicidal thoughts?" And
Oh,
I said to myself, "No, I'm not. I'm going to be fine."
yeah.
And I thought it was kind of a weird thing for her to say, like,
Yeah.
are you having suicidal thoughts? And this is where I wanted to transition into my faith.
Yeah.
It's my faith that kept me strong in
Hmm.
the loss of my wife. It's my faith in God, my faith in Jesus Christ, and you know, again, a lot of people are going to be talking about John Horgan's legacy in the next few days and months. But when we were researching today's show, I realized that John Horgan was a Christian man, and that's something that doesn't get a lot of publicity, right? I never knew that because again, that part of John was very private. He kept that private, and I think a lot of politicians keep that private because they realize that religion is a liability. If you want to appeal as the every man or every woman,
Mm.
you have to keep your religion or your faith on the shelf. You can't admit to being Christian because that's considered a liability in political circles. And and again, I'm getting a little bit soapboxy maybe, but I just feel that's very unfortunate because if I go back 7.5 years when I first met John for that 7 hours. I would have loved to talk to him about his faith. I would have loved to talk to him about his faith.
Mm.
Instead, we just talked about Canucks hockey, and I mean Canucks hockey is great, but I would have loved to talk about his faith.
Hmm.
And so anyway, here is where I really kind of dropped the bomb. about my faith. And again, this is probably going to shock you, and it shocked my parents when I revealed it to them and my sister, because I just kept it private because I thought, well, this is going to just shock them too much. I'm just going to keep it private. So I did for a year and a half. I didn't tell anybody. But what this is I have to back up a little bit. I have I've told people on the podcast here about I did 7 years or so with the Disability Foundation, right? Which is it's run by Sam Sullivan,
Yeah.
and so I did that for 7 years, and I was down there one day selling my book, and then it was like really late in the day, and I was tired, and a woman came up to me, and she's also Christian. She came up to me, and like I knew her pretty well, but she says, what, Neil? He says, I really hope Jesus comes back soon because I'm getting tired of my disabled body. I'm getting really tired of my disabled body, so I hope Jesus comes back soon, so I can get a new body. And I was just tired, and I just kind of dismissed it. And the only thing I said to her in reply, and I walked off right away after this. I walked off. I felt stupid afterwards because I replayed it in my head. But I said to her, soon and very soon, soon and very soon, and then I walked off. And anybody that knows the song, soon and very soon, we are going to see the King. Soon and very soon, we are going. It's a gospel song, right? It's on Andre Crouch, I think, is made famous by Andre Crouch. Anyway, the only reason I said that to her was earlier in the day before I went there, I was singing in my head, or not in my head, I was actually singing out loud that song just before I went downtown. I was singing soon and very soon, right? So I had repeated to her when she said, I hope Jesus comes back soon. I just said soon and very soon, soon and very soon, and I walked off.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Jeez.
So then
Almost like deja vu, right?
yeah.
Oh.
So then it was the very next day. I was changing my bed. You know how monotonous changing your bed is? You kind of wipe your brain. You're not really concentrating on anything. You're just kind of doing it kind of by rote, right?
Yeah.
But I was fully awake. I wasn't drunk or anything. Like I was fully awake, fully alert, doing my bed, and my ear. I felt my left ear open up. I felt my ear open up on the inside. My ear physically opened up, and I heard the audible words spoken in my inner ear. And this is not a joke. This is legit. It was very slow, very, very slow. It was, I am coming. I am coming. And then it was a pause, and then it was soon and very soon. And that was it. 7 words in my inner ear. I am coming soon and very soon. And that was in 2015.
Oh, wow.
May of 2015. So that was about 2 years, roughly 2 years after my wife passed away. And I had kept the fact that God had been speaking to me earlier, that like in your spirit, like people that are religious or have faith, they always say like, I'm hearing God in my spirit. And that was true. It was true with me too. Like I would hear his voice in my spirit where he would say like, I am coming, Neil, I am coming, but it was just a spirit thing. I'd never heard his audible voice. So for 1.5 years, I kept hearing his voice. I am coming, I am coming, I am coming. And one of the things he told me at the very beginning, I was like 4 days after, I think it was 3 days after my wife had passed. Like, so this was way back in 2013 of August. So August 17 of 2013 is when my wife passed away, my first wife. Then it was like almost like God gave me a break of 3 days to kind of collect myself and get over my grief.
Yeah.
And then it was like God really pursued me. He really pursued me, and 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 I heard again in my spirit, like, get ready. That's all I heard, and I was like, get ready, and get ready for what? And then it was like a couple of days after that, it was like, I am coming. And I was like, what does that mean? I didn't know what that meant. Because the other thing that people have to realize is, like, I was a Christian at that point for about 12 years. But what you don't know about me is, like, for 12 years, I was scared crapless about reading anything about the book of Revelation.
Mm,
I never read the book of Revelation because that's just scary stuff, right? I mean, it's
right.
like the end of days. I didn't want to read that.
Hmm.
And it just so happened that the church that I went to at the time, they never read from the book of Revelation. They never preached on it. They ignored it, just like I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
Just like I did. So for 12 years, I ignored the book of Revelation. I never touched it.
Mhm.
And
Heard
and
about that book. Yeah.
yeah, and so it's the final book. It's a book of judgment of when Jesus comes back. And and anyway, so I hear in my spirit again. This is my spirit only. And again, this is a few days after my wife passed in 2017. You know, Jesus, the voice of Jesus in my spirit says, "Get ready, I am coming." And I'm like, "What does that mean?" And he said, "Read the book of Revelation." I heard in my spirit, he says, "Read the book of Revelation." And I'm like, "I don't want to read that." I said, "That book's scary. I don't want to read that." And then, like, I'd never opened it. I never touched it. And
Mhm.
he said, turn to, turn to Revelation verse 3:11, verse 3:11. And I had no idea what verse 3:11 was. I had no idea what
Mhm.
that was. If you go to 3:11 in the Bible, it's, behold, I come quickly. Hold fast what thou hast, so that no man take your crown. Or the other translation of it is I am coming soon. Behold, I am coming soon.
Mm.
That is what Revelation 3:11 says, and I had no idea. And then, and then, like I said, fast forward the into 2015, when I actually heard his audible voice. That was the one and only time I heard his audible voice. Was, I am coming soon and very soon. And again, that's like 3:11. The verse 3:11 became so personal to me,
Mhm.
and like, I guess I just wanted to end the podcast out on, like, that religion is a very personal thing. It's a very private thing.
Yeah.
And people are going to go, well, like, wow, what does that mean? And to tell you the truth, I don't know what that means. Because, like,
Mhm.
I was keeping it private for like 1.5 years, because I thought, well, people are just going to think I'm weird. Like, God's speaking to you. Like, I don't, like, why would God speak to you?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for the last 11 and a half years, it's actually been since 2015 when I heard his voice in my ear. So it's been about 9 years, 9.5 years or so. So when he said that to me, it's like, wow. Like, so I've been expecting him to come back for 9.5 years. And now, yeah, I can hear the scoffers saying, well, like, okay, it's been 9.5 years, Jesus hasn't come back yet. Like, what's the deal? And it's like, well, I don't know. Like, God's got his own timing, of course, but I'm just telling you that, like, this actually happened to me. It's legit. Like, I'm not making it up. And I just wanted to end on that, saying, that this is why my faith is so important to me. This is why I treat it with such respect. Um, you know, this is why I wish I could have talked to John about
Yeah.
his faith 7 years ago.
Yeah.
That there's a lot of politicians that kind of put it on the shelf. They don't want to talk about it because they don't want to offend people, and and I thought to myself, you know what? Like, maybe John, if he was here right now, he would appreciate it. That maybe he would say to himself, like, I wish I could have written a book about my life in politics, and I could have talked about my religion then,
Mhm.
but of course he never got the chance. So
I know.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to end the podcast there. Like that there's so many times we talk about legacy and how religion's important, but it gets put on the shelf. Nobody talks about legacy and how important that is. But it's so important. It's
It's
important for
huge.
it's
Legacy is
important. It's
so
important
important.
for everybody, right? It's
Yeah,
important for
legacy.
everybody.
Thanks for sharing that.
Not just John Horgan. It's important for everybody.
Yeah, and, I want to thank you for sharing that with us. Definitely, legacy is very important. It is, and um, I can remember a time when we were at a convention. There were so many different conventions. It's like trying to recall which one, but there was a time that John Horgan said to me, um, and it always stood out, and I didn't really understand. But now hearing what you mentioned, your story, is that he and I didn't know where he was going with it because he said things happen, Brent, for reasons.
Mm.
I go, well, what do you mean? Like I was just kind of like he just all of a sudden said things happen for reasons, and I said, so John, okay, so you're going to be hopefully be premier. He goes, well, people have to get to know who John is first. I go, see, here's the problem, John, is that we're up in Kamloops, that's right. And I said, so here's the problem is that the accommodation that we were staying at, because everyone had to get their own accommodations, we had ours all booked and ready. People at the accommodation where I'm at, they Sonia, I think you said to John, what did you say about Sonia? Do they know who I am?
No.
Nope.
We were staying at the hotel, and I asked the clerk at the hotel. I said, "Tony, do you know who John Horgan is?" And she says, "Who?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Who's that?"
So we said to John, that's what was going on. He says, oh.
So we had pictures of him.
Yeah, we
Well,
showed.
it's true. Nobody knew. Nobody knew who that was.
So he says it's up to you guys to basically make that happen. And I said, well, hang on. Yes, it's up to us. I said to him, hang on, it is up to us to make that happen. But John, ultimately, it's up to you to make sure that people in the communities know who you are. He goes, so that means I'm going to have to get my button gear and go around the province and make myself well known. And I said, well, people are going to like you for who you are. I said, I can see that, and I saw that. I said to him, I said, I was trying to give him a little bit of a push up because he says, I don't know. I mean, I'll give it my all. And I think now hearing about stories going forward is that apparently John did not want to be premier. He had thought he was going to try and just say, no, like this is not for me. But I think a lot of us from all cross party lines, I think we all kind of said, like John, we knew it was in him. And it was like kind of give him a push of saying, yeah, like go for it. And John was respected from all party stripes. It didn't matter who it was, whichever political party it was. Yes, they had their own policy viewpoints, right? And John knew that too. He knew that they all had different viewpoints on how to get to the policies. There are a lot of disagreements. I mean, John dropped the F-bomb in the parliament, and like he knew, like it's non-parliamentary. You're not supposed to do that, but he got frustrated. He was so frustrated because.
And I just wanted to interrupt a little bit. We have both Dan in chat, and we also have Investigative Research Council both in chat. And Investigative Research Council says the pension was clawed back. Find a better person to praise. So and that's a fair point, I guess. But I think you have to put in context and realize that it's not just John. It was 30 years of clawbacks. Starting with Mike Harcourt, and that's why I don't like Mike Harcourt, right? But we should say too, as much as John did a lot of really good things, I think that was for me. If I was going to grade him, that would be my one really black mark on John. Is like you were saying earlier. He said, I'm not going to make a promise if I can't keep it, right? Well, if you remember, that was one of the campaign promises that the NDP did run on. BC NDP did run on in 2017. They did promise to end the clawbacks. they actually did promise that,
Mhm.
and they didn't do it. So,
Right.
so for as much as what John said, if I make a promise, I'm going to do it. That was one thing that he said he was going to do, but he didn't do it. So
And the
that
And the bus
that's where I give him the one kind of black mark on his record. Other than that, he's basically status quo for 30 years of all other governments have done the same
Mhm.
thing. Not to say that it's excusable, but I'm just saying
Yeah.
it's par for the course. Like 30 years of governments did the exact same thing.
Hmm.
But it's unfortunate because John, it was 16 years of BC Liberals
Yeah.
who did nothing, and then here comes John and he says, we're going to end the clawback," and it was a promised thing. We're going to end the clawback, and they never actually did. So again, that's my one black mark. But I mean, other than that, like I said,
Yeah.
I thought he was an amazing premier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing that always stood out with me is about the like same as like Sonia would echo that. I mean, you could tell them
Oh,
your viewpoint of yeah. Go ahead
it's about the bus pass,
about
but
the bus pass. Yeah.
now
Mhm.
that time has gone on, I can see the point of it now. Like, I don't have to pay anything for my bus pass anymore. It's just there. It's like
Yeah.
$52. You can opt out of it,
But then you got no
but
transportation.
then you don't get
Yeah.
it. But
I still wish they would bring back the yearly one because that
uh,
was so
I
much
I
better, I think.
I think they should like bring it back, but let everyone keep
keep the
that
$52.
$52, and
Mhm.
but then top that up to inflation. And that's the only part that's my kind of my black mark I have on that. I mean,
Mhm.
where because the NDP campaigned on that, like pushed it so hard when opposition, and then when
Mhm.
they got in the government, we're going to bring it back. But then they said, oh, the computer system was dismantled, and it was the Liberals and the NDP blaming each other, and it's like just restore the bus pass.
Mhm.
And John, like I will keep fighting. Like I say, I'll
Yeah.
keep pushing for it, but I'm going to push for it so that it is fairness and equity, so that everyone will get that bus pass and they'll still get the
Yeah.
$52. They can use it for taxi, they can use it for
Yeah.
Uber, or maybe pay a friend to take them somewhere. If that transportation, the
Mhm.
conventional transit's not available, they can still have that where they can still use it for what they need to. There's so many changes to advocate going forward. And I mean, I want to recognize all the accomplishments that John Horgan did do for people's lives. Like, I mean, he tried his very best. Some people would disagree with me on it,
Mhm.
and rightfully so, right? I mean,
Yeah, and people are entitled to their opinion, I
yeah,
should
yeah.
say.
I
Yeah.
mean, they can, and I know people that are around me that they did not like John Horgan for any
Mhm.
of the policies, and fine. Like, I mean, that's their viewpoint.
Yeah.
But getting to know John, like on a personal level, away from politics,
Mhm.
he was a very genuine guy. I mean, like
Yeah.
I explained, I mean, he'd go out of his way. He'd go out of his way to talk to you. He sit
Yeah.
down. I mean, here, share my lunch with you.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and one time John says, Brent, down the road, maybe you and Sonia, I mean, we'll meet up for a beer or something.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, it always stuck in my head. And I'm thinking, and I said to Sonia, I said, well, we moved to Victoria. Maybe sometime and now I remember saying that we were in Langley. And I said,
Mhm.
maybe we'll meet with John, go into Langford or something. We'll meet up at one of his Irish pubs or something like that.
Yeah.
But the next person that's next best to, um, not next best to John Horgan, a name that I want to throw out there to everybody,
Mhm.
um, Ravi Parmar. Ravi, this is to you. Ravi got elected in John Horgan's constituency, where he was the leader. He was the MLA, and we know a leader. He was the premier, but John Horgan, Ravi Parmar. When John Horgan stepped down, Ravi Parmar got elected in Langford, and every time Sonia and I go on the bus, we go right by in Langford, and remember John Horgan's office was right there. Ravi
Mhm.
Parmar's office is there now.
Mhm.
Ravi Parmar got elected in Langford, Juan de Fuca, and Ravi knew John Horgan since he was in grade 5.
Oh, wow.
He's known, yeah, like he was
Yeah.
just a kid. So he's known John Horgan since he was in grade 5. So he was a real close friend, a real mentor to Ravi. And I guess the story was that I think I'll have to try to find in the next podcast. I'll share you with that information, Neil. But basically, I mean, I tried to get Ravi Palmer actually onto the show, and he could probably tell the story about John Horgan. But I'm just giving people an overview from what the information that I read, because I'd love to hear from Ravi. I was actually hoping to try to get Ravi to come on today's show to talk about the legacy of John.
Okay.
That was my game plan, but I wasn't able to reach him. But yeah, he said that John Horgan was his real mentor. He taught him a lot. He actually said, "Wouldn't it be so cool if I came to your school?" And so John Horgan came to his school, and he gave some kind of announcement and presentation. So Ravi always looked up to him, and then he convinced Ravi to run for public office. And
that's cool.
So it really touched Ravi really close, which I'm sure it did. I mean, he's known him since he was in grade 5. I mean, John Horgan. One thing that did stand out, I remember Pat. Remember Pat, Sonia?
Oh, Pat from Nanaimo. Yeah.
Pat from Nanaimo. She told us she was a real feisty lady. But she knew John Horgan since John Horgan was in high school when he was just got out. And she goes, and I'm just gonna say this line.
Back when he had hair.
Yeah, people who knew Pat, because she told Sonia and I, we were actually on Extension. What was it called? Extension Beach. I always get that name wrong. Yeah, Ladysmith. Remember? What's it called? That beach? Anyway, there's a beach in the Nanaimo. I think it's called Extension Beach or River.
No.
Extension something.
No.
Sonia, it'll come to me as she can think about the name. We've gone to those.
I know.
And on Labor Day, usually they have Labor Day picnics. And anyway, we were down there, and a lady named Pat, God rest her soul. She's now up, probably talking with John right now, going,
having a coffee together.
And saying, you know what, you did become premier. You made it, John. She said she was going to kick his ass if he didn't smarten up. She said that too, Sonia and I. She said, she told us the story. She goes, I told him I was going to whip him in the shape. I'm going to whip you in the shape. And no, you can't. Oh yes, I will. And so she smartened John up and told him to look at the long picture of the potential that he could do with his life. And John, even right to the last time before he ran to be premier, he did not want the job. He did not want the job. I think Rob Shaw talks about it too. Keith Baldry will talk about it too. The media, the reporters, they have stories about that. I think in the Vancouver Sun, they have a piece in there about it. But it's interesting. It's interesting that he didn't want it. And I knew, I'm talking to John. He says, I don't know if I'm cut out for this. I said, sure you are. I gave him a pep.
At the beginning, I would say no either, but
gave John
but he ended up being really good.
Right at the convention.
We should end we've been on for almost an hour and a half, so we actually probably should end now. But
I guess the closing comments I want to share with people is John was, as some people would already know, they'll know this. I mean, Sonia knows because she was a good friend to John Horgan. I was a good friend to John Horgan. A lot of people didn't know that. But John said, thanks for being a good friend to me. A lot of people didn't know that I was actually friends with John Horgan, away from the political part. And so I got kind of attacked a little bit. Sometimes some people on social media say, well, Brent's not going to hold John to account because he's a friend of John's. And John and I actually talked about that, and I didn't share that with the public, but John and I had talked to him about it. And he says, Brent, just ignore it. Just ignore it. You're who you are. People like you for who you are. And some people may not like you for who you are. You keep advocating for what you believe in. You stand up for what you believe in. And this is when he was premier. He said to me that I keep advocating for change too. Even as a premier, I keep trying to advocate to make change for the better, to make things better for British Columbians. So I do my part. You need to do your part. Stand your ground. Just you know what? If it gets too much, just ignore them. Just ignore them. Walk away. Ignore the comments. So I did. He actually trained me, and thank you, John, for that. John actually got to a point where John was not on Twitter. He said, I see your posts, I see your tweets, I see your advocacy. I go, how? You're not on there. He goes, I'm not on there because for personal reasons, and I know I'm not going to disclose the personal reasons.
Yeah.
But his staffers were on. So he says, I see you, and thank you for your advocacy. Keep moving forward. And God rest your soul, John. Rest in peace. Live long and prosper. And I'm going to pass it over to Sonia for closing comments.
I just want to say rest in peace, John, and live long and prosper.
Yeah. And I don't have any closing comment really, because I think I said a lot already, but I just wanted to say that again, Dan's in chat and he says here's his closing comment is hold my beer. so
I
again,
I did, Dan. I held his beer, and it was because the media. You can imagine, you guys. All the cameras are all there from all the local news stations. They're broadcasting live, right? And meanwhile, I'm sitting here holding two beer, and I won. The camera was they were turning on an angle because Sheila was getting ready to come up on stage. John came by, swooped the beer. And the camera zoomed around, so I tried to hold this beer away from the camera because I'm going to be live on air. But how would this look?
Yeah.
Right. So
anyway,
thank everyone for tuning in today. Sonia's now left the room already. That means the cue of saying, Brent, and the show.
Time to go.
I want to thank everyone for tuning in today. Stay tuned to our next PWD Allies podcast. Like I always say on every show, just be yourself. We treat each and every guest to the 100% standards. We're not judgmental. Definitely, if you want to come on to the show, we make it as comfortable as we can. Definitely talk about lived experience stories. That's what it's all about, folks. It's all about talking about the changes that you want to see. Can I guarantee that there's going to be changes? I will keep advocating. I will keep holding the politicians to account. It doesn't matter what stripe they are. I'm nonpartisan. And that's, I think, the best way to be, right? It's to hold each and every one to the standard of the elected officials that they get into office. They're expecting to hear from the public. What do they want to see changed, right? And so when the changes are inadequate for the standard of living, we need to hold them to the higher guard, and to make those changes. And that's what John Horgan taught me, is to hold him. He said, hold me to account, Brent. Hold me to account.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm trying. You're not trying hard enough, he said. What? He said, that means keep advocating more, he said. So that's what he taught me. Thank you, John, on that. Thank you for teaching me so much. Thank you, everyone. And stay tuned to the next show. Have a great day.
Thanks.